Okay, so we all know Come As You Are by Nirvana, the second biggest hit of the band's career and one of the biggest and most defining rock songs of all time that's easily identifiable by its opening riff. It's droning and brings you into a trance-like state for 3.5 minutes while Kirk's self-defeating lyrics mosey their way through your speakers. It's sweeping, sadly beautiful, and its main riff was plagiarized. Probably. Now I'm sure you've heard some basement-dwelling neckbeard on the internet tell you about how Come As You Are totally rips off the post-punk classic 80s by Killing Joke, and when you listen to the opening bars of each song back to back, it seems like an open and shut case. Hell, there was even hesitation to release Come As You Are as a second single off Nevermind from the band and management due to the obvious comparisons to Killing Joke. But when you actually look into it, you realize how much of a rabbit hole the Nirvana Killing Joke case is and how deep it goes, spanning several decades, several different artists, and one riff. Let's start at Come As You Are and we'll work ourselves backwards. In 1991, Nirvana was starting to break big with their debut single Smells Like Teen Spirit from their sophomore album, Nevermind. Now I'm sure you all know more than enough about the debut single, but you might not know that it was not originally intended to be a mainstream crossover hit. Originally they were planning to use it as a way of getting Nirvana's name out there and circulating, and they were going to use the second single, which was planned to be Come As You Are, as the breakthrough hit for the band. Very much a hair metal move, releasing the rocker first and the lighter song second, by the by. And after the unexpected success of Teen Spirit, Kurt, who was a big Killing Joke fan, as well as the other guys in the band, didn't want it to be a single because of its obvious connection to 80s, which is probably the second biggest hit Killing Joke ever had, just behind Love Like Blood from the same album, Nighttime. It only charted at number 60 on the English charts, but it was used prominently in the smash film That Aged Like Milk, Weird Science, and since the whole Nirvana debacle, it has become one of the most popular songs by proxy. Nirvana's management, Gold Mountain, was on the fence about it as well. The spot for the second single was between either Come As You Are, or what would end up being the fourth single, In Bloom. But they picked the former because it had more commercial potential, being a lighter song than the former, and they convinced Cobain it was the right decision. So it was released, was a top 40 smash, and has proved to have real staying power since we're still talking about it all these years later. And to the surprise of no one, the plagiarism accusations came flying, especially from Killing Joke themselves. Danny Goldberg of Gold Mountain later said, "We met to discuss what Nirvana's second single would be. We couldn't decide between Come As You Are and In Bloom. Kurt was nervous about Come As You Are because it was too similar to a Killing Joke song, but we all thought it was a better song to go with." And he was right. Killing Joke did later complain about it. You can understand the outrage. This new band who all of a sudden blew up and owed a good amount of their success to the alternative and punk bands of the 80s that they were inspired by, like the Pixies, the Melvins, Husker Du, the Replacements, and Killing Joke. And now they're also lifting licks from these bands who were struggling at the time. This wasn't even the first time this band was accused of stealing from other musicians. Negative Creep from their debut album Bleach had some similarities to Mudhoney's Young Sweet Things Not So Sweet No More. Killing Joke, while they're very upset, didn't end up filing a copyright infringement lawsuit because of, quote, personal and financial reasons. Which makes a lot of sense. Taking one of the biggest bands of all time in a legal case would both cost a lot of money that they probably didn't have, and it could lead to their name being dragged out in the mud by the press as has-beens looking for a quick payday from the hot new band of the time. Which makes more sense when you take into account Killing Joke's difficult relationship with the press in the past. And it's not even a slam dunk case. They would have needed a musicologist to not only prove the riff was definitively theirs and no one else's, and they would have needed proof that Nirvana deliberately copied the riff. And even if they had those things, Nirvana's management and label had so much money, it may not have even mattered. Killing Joke guitarist Gordy Walker, the one who wrote the iconic riff, had this to say in '92. "We were very pissed off about that, but it's obvious to everyone. We had two separate musicologists report saying it was ours, our publisher sent their publisher a letter saying it was, and they went, boo, never heard of ya. But the hysterical thing about Nirvana saying they never heard of us was that they had already sent us a Christmas card. But whether or not there was a legal complaint sent or not, it was either thrown out of court, or by '94 when it was discovered that Kurt Cobain took his own life, the members of Killing Joke decided to just drop it and let the rest of the band and Kurt's family mourn in peace. Yellowcard could learn a thing or two. But another reason people give for Killing Joke not bothering to pursue the case was the fact that the riff in question was found to be incredibly similar to one of the Damned's 1982 song Life Goes On from the album Strawberries. The riff is actually played on a bass in this song and is more monotone than 80s, but has a similar tempo, whereas Nirvana's songs slow the riff down. I've never seen anyone from the Damned ever mention it, except for Paul Gray, the guy who played bass in that song. He had this to say in 2018 after being asked about the subject in question. Yeah, tell me about it. Someone's done a YouTube compilation of Life Goes On, Killing Joke's 80s, and Nirvana's one. I play it to music students in my MU visits and always ask what they think, as they've probably only ever heard the Nirvana one. If that. It's always unanimous. We did ask our publisher at the time to look into it, but rather surprisingly it went no further. So yeah, taking a band to court for supposedly ripping off your riff doesn't look good when the riff has been used by a fairly well-known artist before you. Pity no one told Radiohead. And believe it or not, there's even more to uncover. A band called Garden of Delight recorded a song only months after the release of 80s that has a new wave inspired take on the riff. In 1981, a full year before The Damned, Bauhaus's second album Mask had a song called Hollow Hills, which used a very slow and slightly more simplistic version of the riff. And even in 1968, we have one-hit wonder R&B group The Equals with their one hit, Baby Come Back, which again uses that riff. It's in a major key and you do need to crane your neck a bit to hear it, but you can't deny it sounds very familiar. So even if Killing Joke won the case, who's to say the Damned or Bauhaus wouldn't come after them next? But in the years since, Killing Joke continued to evolve their sound, and Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl formed his new band. Maybe you heard of them. They're called Foo Fighters. And in 1997, for the B-side for their smash hit Everlong, they recorded a cover of the Killing Joke song Requiem from their very first album, which I'm sure didn't mean much to most people, but to those paying attention, they must have thought it was wild. And it got even more surprising a few years later when Dave played on Killing Joke's 2003 self-titled album, for completely free, never asking to be compensated for his time and performance.
Call up, get through and say, oh you cunt, you owe us the fucking song that you made do, so I want you to play drums.
What about 80s? Look in the camera, look in the camera. What the fuck are we gonna do about 80s?
Dave Grohl did it for nothing.
And when you listen to it, he took obvious inspiration from original Killing Joke drummer Paul Ferguson, but he still made it his own, and he sounds like Dave Grohl. Bassist Paul Raven spoke to Rolling Stone years later about the whole controversy, and there was no bad blood on his side at all. Yeah, Dave and I had a few laughs about that over the past year or so. He mentioned it to me when I met him backstage at Pantera a couple years back. And as late as 2017, Foo Fighters invited frontman Jazz Coleman on stage with them in Prague to perform Requiem, and Dave was very complimentary to him and Killing Joke.
This man, his name is Jazz Coleman. He's the singer of a band called Killing Joke. I don't know if you know that. This band changed my life.
So it's been almost 3 decades since Nevermind came out, and both Nirvana and Killing Joke have cemented their place in the history of rock music. And despite the spat they had in the early 90s, they obviously didn't hold it against each other. Hell, I don't think Kurt took it that seriously even at the time.
3 million lawsuits against Nirvana at the moment for stealing 80s off us, which is Come As You Are. And Kurt from Nirvana has always said, yes, we did it.
And every band out there has lifted licks from the artists they love at some point or another, even Killing Joke. So do yourself a favor and just listen to both songs and both bands. There's a ton of great material to be found in their discographies, so focus on that instead of bashing Nirvana for writing a song that people liked. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, you can click the links on screen for more videos, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to remain notified and to support the channel. But anyways, take it easy, party people.